It's 10 days in silence. You're not allowed to make eye contact with anybody. You can't journal. You can't do exercise. You can't read. Although I got desperate enough and I read my toothpaste packet. But really, this is how desperate this is how desperate your brain gets.
That's awesome, Jess.
My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path. Well, hello.
Well, hello. Hey, Jess, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing so good. I'm doing
Good,
great. Yeah.
good.
Hi,
Yeah.
Jess. We are just so happy that you've joined us. And just so our viewers know who you are a little bit, I'll start with the introduction. You're a family therapist and mom coach from Australia. Used to be a social worker, but branched out into, I think, more coaching and therapy that you appreciated because it wasn't so linear, is the way that I took it. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, that's so perfect. I love that you said
Oh,
because
thank you.
the way that I do things is not so linear. And I think that's the magic of when you get to create in your
Mm.
own business and you get to create your own modality, so to speak, or your way of working and your concepts and everything. Because it's not linear. Being human is not linear, and that's kind of the beautiful thing when you get used to it. So that is perfect. I was a social worker. Look, it didn't take me long to figure out that that wasn't the path for me.
Mm.
I think I've always had a bit of a, yes, passionate, yes, motivated, yes, ambitious, but also a bit of a rebellious streak within me. And one which always wanted to look at the bigger picture of things. And I just felt within social work that it was very limiting for me. There was this box, and I'm just not a fan of boxes in any form at all. So it only took me a couple of years to realize that that wasn't the path for me. There was a few scenarios where I didn't agree with how we were working with families and working with children. I didn't agree with the interventions or the therapies that we were providing children that had experienced trauma. If we knew anything about the brain and the body, we wouldn't be giving these interventions because we know that they don't work with traumatized nervous systems, especially in children. And so once I learnt all of this, once I really went deeply down the path of brain development, child development, and the parent-child relationship and how that creates our being, our sense of self and our psychology and our biology, and learnt more about the nervous system, I couldn't go back. So I ventured out. I decided to quit, not knowing what on earth I was going to do. I just decided maybe I should move to Italy. So I actually became an English teacher because I thought I'll just go to Italy. That'll give me all the answers. Traveling usually does. And I got over there and it didn't give me the answer straight away.
Mm.
But I went on a big trek. I did the that pilgrimage through Spain, the
Mm.
Camino
Yeah.
trek,
Yeah.
and shortly after I got my answer. And it did help that I had been experiencing my own panic and anxiety attacks just before I went overseas. So I had this real understanding of the body and the mind, and I was experimenting with what would work quite desperately. Actually, I was extremely frightened. I was so scared of being in my body. I was terrified. Terrified. I actually didn't want to wake up, each day. I was terrified.
Mm.
I'd never experienced anything like it before. And so I got to really experiment with what worked. And what I realized out of that was the power of connecting in with the body and feeling safe in the body was the missing link in
Mm.
everything that I'd been doing in the past. So I started my first business. I started working with kids, brought in yoga therapy and body therapies, and and shortly after, another chapter opened where I was entering homes and realized it's not the kids. It's not the kids that need the support. It's the parents. The kids like me, sure. They were having a good time with me. We were having some fun. But let's face it, kids don't want to be understood by a therapist or a yoga teacher. They want to deeply be connected to and understood by their parents. That's it. That will never change. So that's when I started to really delve deeper into the parent-child relationship and developing a whole range of work and foundations to work with, parents. And now just mums. That's what I focus on.
Sure.
Yeah. One of the podcast episodes that you were on, I don't remember which one it was, Jess, but at the top it talked about your willingness as a parent to get feedback from your kids. And I don't know, about 15 years ago, I started telling my kids, when you're an adult, there will be things you'll be upset with me about. Things that I said, didn't do, or didn't say. And all I ask is that when you're aware of how you've experienced harm from me, is that you come talk to me about it. And so that was very resonant.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so gorgeous that's how you said it as well, Teresa. I think it's one of the biggest things that parents come to me with. Mums say to me, only the other day I had one of my clients say, I feel like it's too late, Jess. I feel like I've completely, ruined my children's lives and damaged them, and it's too late. And and this is the point of why I always bring up that what you've shared, Teresa, because it actually doesn't matter who we've been in our parenting journey. Yes, it does, of course. But when we're trying to do our best, what matters is, like what you said so beautifully, when you become aware of how something I did or didn't do impacted you, the ability to express that sets you both free. Because all we're doing is giving it a voice, allowing it to be heard, and allowing both parties to feel understood within that. Because, I was angry at my mum for many, many, many years. She wasn't silly. She knew, right? She could feel it. She knew there was something within me that I was furious at her. I hadn't forgiven her for something. I was so angry. And I used to say, no, I love you, Mum. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But then I discovered what it really was. And it wasn't until I could express it to her that it allowed both of us to be set free. And that's when a deeper connection can happen. So that is the key. That is the most powerful thing we can do as parents when our children are of an adult age that can understand themselves.
Yes. A journey we never stop traveling.
Never.
Yeah.
I've been in rooms with like 70 and 80-year-old people and older, and they're still journeying what they are so just heartbroken over with their parents, what they never got to express or what they haven't accepted. It's really that, what they haven't accepted who their parents were and who their parents weren't. And I share this story often when I'm asked about this, and this is what helped bring my light bulb moments online. I was in this room full of it was probably about 150 people, and the facilitator said, can I get everybody to the front of the room who is between 20 and 24, right? No, sorry, she said 18 to 24. So all of these people got up to the front, and we're sitting there, and she allowed us some minutes, and she said, okay, I want you to be really aware of all the judgments you just made, okay? How they're dressed, how they're standing, how they appear to you. What do you think their personality is like? What do you think they're capable of? And she said, you need to know that most of your parents were this age when they had you. And it was that moment that I started to ask some better questions of myself. That was a really powerful moment for me.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm.
Parenting. I
Yeah.
say it's the hardest thing that we'll ever do.
When you
Yeah.
open that,
Mamma mia.
when you open that pathway with clients to start teaching them about having those sorts of discussions,
Mm.
what do you do to prepare them for handling it well? As far as reactivity when you hear
Mm.
your child's truth, whatever their truth may be.
Mhm.
Mm. I suppose the greatest thing that I can do for them is speak into the worst fears that they have.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
we unravel the worst fears, the
Mhm.
worst things that they could hear. What are they scared of hearing? What are they scared that that means about their children, but also about them?
Mhm.
And when you speak into that, again, we're just allowing this piece of themselves and these fears of their nervous system, by the way, right? These are the fears of the nervous system, the survival mechanisms of who they should or shouldn't be, what's right or wrong, what will keep them alive, what's going to help them survive. This is all the fears talking. But when you get it out, when it's seen by me in that moment, heard by me, somebody who's non-judgmental, they can just voice it, because most of the time it's not voiced. It's we tend to shut down the most the scariest thoughts that we have. We don't share them. And
Mhm.
so that in itself gets them prepared, because then once they voice their fears, all of the nervous system sensations start to come to the surface, and then we feel into that. Then I guide them through that experience and help them see it's just a sensation in the body. And then we go into some body work to help them have a few tools to bring them back to some kind of balance in their body. But yeah, usually, Walker, it's just speaking into the worst outcome they can possibly imagine.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm,
Yep, I agree.
mm,
It sounds like you
yeah.
practice and
Yeah.
then you'll hear something you didn't
Yeah.
anticipate.
Well, it's funny because
This is speaking from experience.
yeah,
Mm,
right. And I add that at the end as I say, the things that you're upset with me about, I may not remember. And the things that, oh, shoot, now I'm trying to remember how I say it. Oh, and the things that I'm worried you're upset about, you may not remember.
Right.
oh,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. Isn't that always the case? It's
Right.
just always the case. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because what we
Yeah.
value is very, very different. Mhm.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And the stories we have.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
So for you, Jess, when you think about this journey for you personally, how do you, well, when do you remember that you started even paying attention to yourself and your
mm,
thoughts and your process?
mm. There was a pretty defining moment. And as you both would know, I think there's always a few, and it forever will be those moments that come through, which is the beautiful thing. But there's one moment that I remember, and I was 27, and I'd just gotten out of an 8-year relationship. We were engaged to be married, and we got together when I was 19. So I was so young. I actually had no idea on what a healthy relationship looked like, what it
Mhm,
felt like, how to create it. No
mhm.
clue at all. I was running
Yeah.
blind. Um, and I believe he was too.
Mm,
We didn't, not even my aunties and uncles or grandparents, like there just wasn't any healthy, loving relationships around me
mm,
that I saw or grew up with. And coming from a home where there was a lot of unpredictability and chaos and instability, and um, you know, quite horrible at times. So I didn't learn anything from my parents in the healthy way about relationships, intimacy. And so at 8 years, I decided that I needed to end it.
Mm.
And that was probably one of the scariest decisions I've ever made in my whole entire life, because we'd grown up together, you know, from
Mhm.
19 to 27. There's a lot of growing up in those younger
Mhm.
years. And I was terrified, but I remember asking myself the question, what is scarier right now? A life of this or leaping into the unknown?
Mhm.
Because I think, and it's interesting when I say that out loud, I kind of feel like that's the question that you repetitively ask throughout your life.
Mm.
Is it this, or is it I need to be in the unknown? And it's usually the fear of the unknown that has us stay, right?
Mhm.
Just in the
Mhm.
familiar. So I think that question really made it obvious to me that the unknown was less scary. And that was pivotal for me. So I ended it. And I went and saw a documentary film within this time of my life, and it was called Emotion. And there were people like Joe Dispenza in it, and a few other people that are probably doing really well now. But back then, they were probably unknown. And for the first time, I'd started to hear these new concepts around energy and the
Mm.
unconscious mind and thought patterns. And, you know, when you just hear something and it speaks so true to who you are or where you're going, and your whole body just gets electric with this inner knowing. You just know that this is true for you. And I had that moment. And it was the first moment that I started to think to myself, I need to be responsible for my thoughts. I need to become responsible for my energy. This is a thing. This is real. I need to decide how I want my life to go, because at that point, I'd always blamed him, or I'd
Mm.
always blamed the outside world for everything.
Mhm.
Right. And at that point, I realized, wow, I've created this. Like my
Mm.
unconscious mind has created this. My body has created this. My energy has created this. My mind was blown. So from that point, I kind of became pretty addicted to this whole journey of self-discovery and learning about the nervous system, the unconscious mind, what it all means for me. My relationship to my parents and my childhood, I'd already been pretty addicted to that by then, but even more so, it was the first time that I realized I've got to start taking responsibility for my thoughts and my energy. So
Mm.
that's my earliest memory of it being, yeah, it felt big. It felt big in that
Mhm.
moment for me.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. It was, obviously.
mm, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Relationships have a good way of doing that
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
well. Mm,
So do big decisions.
Mhm.
And courage,
absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And they always lead to the greatest things,
Mm.
greatest outcomes I've found so far.
Yeah, I
Mm,
agree.
So
mm,
when you went on this trip and you hiked the Camino in
mm,
Spain, you said you were terrified of being in your body.
mm.
What what was that like for you, and how did you find a way out?
Mm. It was so when I started getting those sensations in my body, like the anxiety and the panic attacks, um, I spent probably 5 days at my mum's house in bed in darkness.
Mm.
I couldn't even, the thought of going outside and venturing into the world was just too much for me. I couldn't
Mm.
bear it. Um, it felt like there was an elephant stampeding on my chest, and I was really scared to be alone. So distraction, I needed to distraction. And and I went to the doctor, I did all the, bunny ears, right thing. So I went to the doctor, and she said, well, it could be anxiety, and here are your meds. And I took them. I took, I filled the script, and I got it filled, and I took a tablet one day, but I just knew that that wasn't the path for me. I knew that that wasn't the journey for me in supporting myself to get through this. I was desperate, of course, so I did it. I needed to feel some freedom in my body. So, but I threw them in the bin, and then I left for Italy, still really terrified in my body. And I decided, well, if I'm going to do something, it needs to be something that's aligned with who I am. And who I am is somebody who believes in yoga and meditation. You know, they've always called to me, they've always spoken to me, they've always felt really supportive to me. So I leaned on them heavily. And it probably took, honestly, when I started committing to the process of it, it probably took me about a month to really trust myself again, to really trust my body again, that it wasn't going to have me flip out and feel fearful all day, every day. And I was so desperate for it to work too. And that's what I was so committed at the same time. So I really relied on meditation and yoga at that point. And that's, yeah, that's when I realized the power of the body. I had this real life example of how scary it can be, and also how changing our relationship to those scary sensations can set us free. And everyone that I'd been working with up until that point was experiencing their different levels of fear in their body. And we still do on a daily basis. You know, the humans do, we do. This is all natural and normal as well. And I still do from time to time. It's not, you know, I have a human body and it still does react like that sometimes. But the difference is that I'm not scared of it anymore. And it's been a really interesting, long process, but that's how it started, Walker. That's the process that I had to go through to really understand it for myself.
What have you found for yourself to be most helpful to get back into your body or to stay in your body when you are struggling?
There's have either of you heard of Vipassana? The 10-day
silent retreat.
Yeah. So I've done that twice now. And so for everyone listening, it's 10 days in silence. You're not allowed to make eye contact with anybody. You can't journal. You can't do exercise. You can't read. Although I got desperate enough and I read my toothpaste packet. But really, you know, this is how desperate your brain gets.
That's awesome, Jess.
I'm not kidding. And it wasn't just once. I was like, oh, I probably missed a word. I'll read it again.
That's great.
And so you're in this place, and you meditate 10 hours a day. And they guide you through. Each night you watch a video, and they're teaching you this practice of Vipassana, this style of meditation. And it's really about getting control over your thoughts, understanding them, but then becoming equanimous with the sensations in your body. So it's about having no judgment over them, the perceived good or bad or ugly ones. And so this experience for me completely transformed my life. Completely tipped it on its head. And each time that I've come out of Vipassana, somehow my world and my life just got 10 times more calm and peaceful and connected and loving. It's incredible. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life, without a doubt. It's emotionally painful for me. Some people have physical reactions, but for me, it's the emotional pain. You know, I would tackle a barbed wire fence to get out of there in the first few days, and I did think about it in the beginning, right? To be alone with your thoughts, and then the sensations in your body that come up from that spiral that we're in sometimes, the spiraling thoughts of fear, everything that we fear in this world and about ourselves. It's quite horrifying in my opinion, but the freedom that it leads to once you understand this process is just amazing. So how do I come back? it's using that process. What I learned a lot in that, and what I continue to learn logically, but then in my body, I feel like I need both. Some people may not need as much logic as I do, but I need to understand logic and then experience it too. Is that I've got to come back to embracing the sensations. So I come back to the body all of the time, and I've been practicing this a lot since becoming a mum, because there's this extra force now of demands or pressure or unpredictability. Another arena where you have lack of control. There's all these lessons that you've got. So the moments where I can feel the volcano within me, either it's lack of sleep or just so much crying and screaming for that day, and I've reached my limit, and I can feel the bubble in my body, and I get to the point where you can feel, I know that my body wants to scream so that it releases all of the pressure and it can calm again. I feel that deeply in my body. I'm so aware of that. And so what I need to do is be completely silent and feel it. I've got to feel that sensation. I use this word with all of my clients now, and it brings a different view of the sensation. We just say, can I befriend it? Can I befriend you? Can I be friends with you? So that's what I have to do all of the time, when that's there for me. And it's a really foreign concept when nobody's asked us to do that or to delve into those uncomfortable sensations. So that's how I do it. I have to come back to the scary sensations and befriend, and breathe and breathe. I come back to, the breath, the feeling of the breath, and trust that it's going to leave. Right? There's this fear sometimes that those uncomfortable sensations will stick and stay, but they do move. They move through. They move on. They go. I used to be terrified of the depressive states that my body got to. Terrified. And now I'm not anymore. I'm not terrified of them anymore, because I know it passes. I know it goes. I've altered my internal response to them. I don't feel the fear. I just feel like it's okay. I trust this will leave. It's just an experience. It's just a sensation like joy. It's just the same. It's just going to pass. And that just takes a lot of practice, a lot of practice and trust. Yeah. That's how that's what I do, Teresa, to help.
That journey of learning to trust yourself. What comes to you when I say that?
For me, I've reached a new level of that since becoming a mum. And I don't know if I don't believe it's a coincidence, because I'm not that young. I mean, I'm young, but I'm not that young. I'm 37. I had my daughter. No, yeah, I'm 37. Just 18 months ago, right? So I'm not a young mum. I've lived a couple of lives so far. But the self-trust came in really strong when I became a mum. And I've been thinking about this even before we got on the call today. I don't know yet that I have the words to articulate the why. There was this feeling, if I could describe it in any way, it was like I've got to experiment with everything that I believe to be true for the benefit of my daughter. It really then became, well, this matters now, Jess. This really matters. How do you want to set your daughter up for her adulthood? How do you want that to go? And are you modeling everything that you believe to be true about yourself, the world? And more, it's just becoming so clear to me that we can believe anything to be true. It's really a choice when we become so aware of just how our body reacts to things, and that it's just a survival mechanism and it doesn't need to mean anything. We give it the meaning, that's what our brain does, but it matters what we choose to believe.
Mm.
And I just think for my brain now, it has two really clean and clear pathways. I've got the pathway which is trusting my inner knowing and my inner voice, and this it's like the true nature of who I am, or the fear and survival mechanisms. So they're the two pathways for me.
Mhm.
You were talking about your inner knowing, and I think you called it
Mm,
voice,
pathways.
and this
Mm,
divergence between that and just regular body sensations. And I was going to
mm,
ask you, how do you discern the difference?
mhm. Yes, I've learnt this over many years, and I got the language around it from my first ever business coach probably about 8 years ago. But this is how it feels in my body. This is how I discern the difference. The my the path of my true self and that inner voice is expansive, and it's filled, when I think about it, my body opens, it feels expansive, and it feels filled with possibility.
Mm,
And even in my body now, I can feel it. It's filled with possibility and limitless creation and freedom. And
mm,
over here in the survival mechanisms is limitation and constriction. So in your body, those two things should be really, really easy to discern, right? One feels open, one feels closed off and constricted. And it's so not easy to even choose the expansive
Mhm.
path, even though your body's telling you. It doesn't mean that it's then simple and everything is
Right.
forever beautiful and free and glorious and full of stars. It doesn't mean that at all,
yeah.
because it's taken me so long, I feel, to start trusting this path of the
Mhm.
expansive
Mhm.
sensations. It's taking me a long time, and I feel like it's catapulted since having my daughter, because I've made the choice. I want to choose this path for her too,
Mhm.
right? I want to show her that this path is possible and it's worth trusting.
Mhm.
That for me is so important for her.
Mhm, mhm,
Mhm.
And so I've got to practice what I preach, and I've got to do that for my clients too. I
mhm,
take my work really seriously, because the impact that it has on homes and children, and the relationship parents have with their children is my why. It's so important to me, and I can't guide unless I'm living that too. I will not practice like that. I do not practice like that. So I have to do it.
mm,
And I also find that's the beautiful thing about being in business, choosing your path, because I like being held accountable to that too.
Mhm.
I've got no way out either. So when things get tough, it's like, Jess, you know, you work with people and preach this, and you have a daughter who you've promised, something really big to, and yourself more than anything. So it's time to make a choice. Which path? Um, so that's how I discern, but it certainly doesn't mean, that all your problems go away, because we can never, ever, ever underestimate the power of our survival instincts, which is to keep us safe, remain in predictability, have control, and that is the limiting path that I feel, and that is often the case. That's the limiting path that I see for me, but
Mhm.
also for everyone I work with.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. What's coming up for you?
Joseph Campbell.
Yes, for sure.
Repeatedly.
Mhm.
One of Teresa's favorite quotes is the dark cave versus the tiger's lair.
Is that
You know it?
something you're familiar with?
Share, I mean, you saying that, I've got visuals and I'm making
Yeah.
my own meaning out of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to hear it. Share it with
So
me.
I don't know the quote exactly, but Joseph Campbell was the one who wrote about the hero's journey. So whether that's
Yes.
Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or whatever. And so one of the quotes that he has is that essentially the dark cave holds the treasure that we seek, but we would rather choose the tiger's lair because it's known. Even if it will kill us, we will choose that over the unknown. So,
I just got goosebumps. Yeah.
yeah.
It is profound.
Mm.
I just think we have to continually work on it
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so easy as human beings to want the known, and I guess it seems like the easy path even when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I
Um,
know. This is the conundrum of being
It is.
human. It's such a conundrum and it's a paradox and it's ironic.
Yeah.
And it's at some point you've got to develop some kind of sense of humor with it because
Yes.
otherwise it'll just torment,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
yeah, it's a conundrum for
Yeah.
sure.
One of our
Mm,
sayings, Jess, is we're so complex. And
mm,
yeah, I say that to my clients all the time
And to each other. It's
and to each
shorthand
other.
for a lot of humanity.
Yeah. We're so complex. We're so complex. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
judgmental,
Yeah.
inconsistent, you name it.
Right. Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We're so complex. Yeah. Or it's messy. That's
So
another one we say, like, "Ooh, it's messy. It's messy." Yeah. Like you were
yeah.
saying, I mean, it would be nice that once we had the awareness, we chose
Mm,
differently. And
mm,
it's just not that
mm.
simple. Mm-hmm.
No, no. I'm curious for you both.
Mm.
The choice then between those two pathways, or the out with the lion or in with the cave. What's it like for you at the moment? Has it does it does it get more does it get yeah, what is it like for you both
Mm.
in that space with the choices, right? The decisions.
Sure. Sure.
You go first.
Ah, I was
Nice
wondering.
try.
um, just for me, I would say similarly, expansive or contracted were words we've heard a lot since we started the podcast, people describing it
Mm,
that way.
yeah.
So for me, it wasn't those words, but they resonate as well. For me,
Mm,
what I felt in my body when I was clear, when I was listening to myself, was that I wasn't distracted by other stories. And I felt very settled in my body.
mm,
So very
mm,
grounded.
mm,
And if it was not resonant for me, it was a wanting, not a knowing.
mm,
I have a little bit of like shake that happens in my body. So there's like a little
mm,
bit of vibration that happens.
mm,
And I think I became aware of that, oh, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I remember sitting there in this meeting going, what is that? And then having this awareness that, what was being offered to me wasn't resonant with myself. Even though the offering was generous and it felt
mm,
very, I don't know, like I felt very chosen and very
mm,
seen. Um,
mm,
and so it was interesting for me, like somebody that was in the meeting with me said, well, isn't that excitement? And I was like, I don't think so. I was like, I think that is something I need to pay attention to because I don't know that I know
mm.
what that is. And then
Sure.
in that being with myself and asking myself those questions, then I was clear. This wasn't my path.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
mhm,
Wow. I love that. That's so
mhm.
beautiful. So how amazing you got to tune into your body. So yeah, so clearly you've got that beautiful signal.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah. So, and I value the body. I talk about the body a lot. I'm not a trained somatic practitioner. Like, a lot of people get trained in somatic experiencing. I don't have that training.
mm,
But I did about 16 years ago get trained in what's called heart-centered hypnotherapy. And there was a lot of body focus in that particular modality. And
mm,
I think that and breath work and psychodrama, there were a lot of very experiential modalities that I was trained in
mm,
that I think also were helpful. It's also where I learned to fire walk and do sweat lodge. And so
mm,
there were a lot of body experiences that I had in that period of
mm,
time as well that provided a lot of contrast to just my everyday life.
mm,
So a lot of unknowns I
mm,
stepped into in this like 2-year period where I was working very deeply on myself.
mm, mm. I like that word, contrast.
Mhm. So, what about you?
Well, um, your description of the electrify, if you felt electrified after
Mm.
watching emotion, um, and I would guess that that's another sign that you've had since at the right times. I have a tingle that goes up and down my spine when my soul is like, this is it. I go through periods where I get that feedback, and then other periods of time where I don't. Um,
Mm,
and so, um, but I do, I recognize that I get it when I'm in nature, particularly. And I think I've denied that part of myself since I was a young man in
mm,
college. Like looking at
mm,
career choices and things like that. Because when we go places in the mountains, Colorado, or we were just in the Dolomites in Italy, my soul sings.
Mhm.
And so I guess, just looking at it for me right now, the tiger's lair is being a trial lawyer, which I've done for 30 years. And the dark cave um, is finding the courage to take the leap into whatever is next. And I
mm,
want it to be productive. I don't want to say retirement. I like to say graduating from trial lawyer school.
Mhm.
So, but
mm,
that's where I am right now. But I know that
mm,
in talking about, we know better and we get the
mm.
feedback from our body, yet still we remain.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
really good at being a trial lawyer. I am. But I have it was interesting when I was inspired when you were saying, listen, I have to live this or I'm not, I
Mm,
don't have integrity with myself, my clients, or my child.
Mm.
And I still am able to provide value for my clients, but I felt some shame and maybe I don't have integrity because I feel that way in the background that that's my body is not singing, saying
mm,
this fight for justice every day is
mm,
what you should be doing, right?
mm,
My
mm,
body sings when I'm out in nature.
mm. I can feel that. I can feel
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So
That
anyway,
stinging.
that's more of
Mm,
where I am right now, but it's also my process because I recognize, like you said, the contraction, when you start thinking and your body is tight and cramps up and your thoughts get smaller, all those things tell me, hey, that's not for me. So
mm.
anyway, just it's fascinating process, this
It is.
thing called life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you both for sharing that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
I've also noticed one thing that I talk about a lot is we took a meditation teacher training course with Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock. That was a couple
mm,
year course online. And the biggest takeaway or the primary thing that I use now is just gaining enough space
mm.
to between um, what is it called?
The pause?
Yeah, the
Mhm.
pause between stimulus and response.
Mm.
And I try to practice that. That's where I'm able to try to, find the grounding and touch back in with the body. So that's, on a daily basis, I have to go there.
Yeah,
And it's kind of how I
that's
regulate.
yeah. I think your brain goes through so many different processes in that pause that we might not give credit to it. There's a lot that goes on in that pause
Yeah.
period.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was
Mm.
interested in the Vipassana retreats that you did. We had to do one of those to qualify to take the course with them. But they intersperse the meditation periods with Dharma talks
Mhm.
and some small group interaction. And you said you would watch educational films, but I didn't know if there were Dharma talks and there actually was interaction, or if it was just you were silent and no eye contact
Completely silent.
the whole
Yeah,
time.
completely silent. There's zero interaction for the entire 10 days.
Yeah,
You have a manager that watches over you all, so to speak, and
sure.
if there's some kind of urgent thing, then of course you can, talk to the head teacher. But if you're struggling with the practice, you can do that at a certain time each day. It's just from 12 to 12:30. You can ask a question in your private room with her. But other than that, there's nothing. And you have a Dharma talk. It goes for an hour and a half from like 8:30 to 10 at night time, something like that. But that's the only stimuli, so to speak, over
Sure.
those 10 days. Yeah,
Did you do
it's
that at Buddhist retreat centers in Australia?
Yeah, there's one not far from me, and I see that they've got so many over the world, which is so awesome. Um, it is a Buddhist meditation center set up by Goenka, so SN Goenka, who's the founder of the that movement
Mm.
in the world, and it's been there for quite some time now. But it's gorgeous. It's just in
Mm.
nature, and
Mhm.
if you're just wandering through the day, you just see kangaroos and you hear nothing but birds.
Mm.
So, more stillness and silence to be with your scary thoughts.
Yes.
But, with nature to support you somehow in its own way.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
What's the name of the place near you?
It's it's in Mona, Sunshine Coast,
Mm.
and I don't know the name of the center. I just usually always look up Vipassana Sunshine Coast Pomona, and it just comes up.
Okay. Well, we
Um,
can look it up.
yeah, but
Mhm.
no, they've got them all over the world, um,
Mm.
and it's just feels really authentic,
Mm.
very authentic. There's nothing salesy or marketing about it. It's
Mm.
it's not that space. They've kept
Right.
true to the essence of what they teach, which in
Mhm.
this world is difficult to do when you need money to do things and sustain
Yeah.
things,
Right.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so they've done a beautiful job.
Mm. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think, Jess, about sharing resources for people that you think have been helpful for you on your journey, what comes to mind?
I think for me, honestly, that documentary, Emotion,
Mm.
definitely.
Mhm.
The first couple of books I started reading, one called The Chimp Paradox, which really helped me understand the emotion center of the brain and reactions and the nervous
Mm.
system and fear and thoughts and all of that.
Mhm.
That was huge for me. It really helped my brain start understanding myself better and be a bit more compassionate towards myself too,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
definitely what we need to do more of.
Yeah.
So any other resources? I think, yeah, I think definitely those so far that I've said.
Mhm.
Um, I honestly, I really do believe anything to do with meditation is just so empowering.
Mm.
I really do. I will say this thought has come to my mind, so I will just share it. I honestly think one of the greatest resources is having the people around you that absolutely believe in what you're trying to achieve for yourself. I really think you can be reading the books, listening to the podcasts, you can be doing all of those things, but your environment with who you're spending the most time with, who you're listening to the most, the intimate, the friendships, family relationships, all of them, it really matters. Also the professionals that you get support from as well,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
If your doctors or therapists don't believe in what you're trying to achieve for your life, you're never getting there. You're
Yeah.
just not. So I really do believe, and I started doing this process quite a few years ago now, where I decided anyone in my life that is not truly aligned with the highest version of myself, then there is no space or place
Mm.
for them anymore. And this was from a place of like, not it kind of sounds heartless when you say that, but I do think we need to be protective of our time and our energy, and our greatest resource is time, and then above that is who we're spending that time with, and who is speaking to us, and who are we sharing with, who's reflecting back to us what we're saying or what
Mm.
we're experiencing in this reality. So the greatest resource as well is the people that you confide in, the people that are with you on this journey. What do they believe in? What do they deny is true? What do they deny is possible? Because you will live into that.
Mhm.
And the greatest shifts have always come for me when I'm surrounded or supported by the people who believe in endless possibility as well, that believe in so much is available to us. Healing is possible. Love is safe. Um,
Mm.
Parenting can be enjoyable.
Mm.
These things matter. It
Yeah.
really does matter. So I think above all, that really is one of the greatest resources
Mhm.
that we can consider and think about.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. So true
Mm.
and so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Mm.
Jess, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. It's like the hour goes so fast. It's crazy. I feel like we had a lot more ground to cover, but covered a lot of ground. So
Yes. Yeah.
just want to thank you for your time and for spending it with us.
Yeah. When you
Thank you.
As we wrap up, is there something, if you were going to send out an intention to the people listening today, what would it be?
When in doubt, come back to self.
Mm.
There's many scenarios in this world where we're focused on somebody else or something else, or trying to fix a problem, trying to avoid a problem, trying to fix somebody else. Um, Whatever it is, when in doubt, when in a state of confusion, uncertainty, coming back to self will be the greatest stabilizer and creator of clarity that there can be.
Mm.
So, when in doubt, come back to self. And what that means in reality is focus on what you need, focus on what brings you joy, focus on what has you feel alive and grateful, whatever that is, whatever you need to do, whatever you need to say no to, whatever you need to say yes to. Um, Focus on self, because that will always steer you in the right direction. The
Mm.
noise will distract you. Um, Stillness with self will guide you um, in the way that serves you at the highest good.
Mm.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here. Thank you.
Oh,
It's been such a nice
yeah.
conversation with you both.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing what comes next for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.